Alright, welcome back everybody to our countdown to Spider-Man No Way Home. Joined by...
Spider-Man himself, Taylor Johnson.
And today we are going from the Tobey Maguire movies to the Andrew Garfield movies with the first Amazing Spider-Man. The excitement I have for these movies. Jumping straight into this movie, one thing this franchise does that really no other franchise has since is delve into Peter Parker's parents.
I love it.
Oh yeah, it's handled really well here. It wasn't something they delved into in the Sam Raimi ones. I like what they did here.
I do too. I think it's very important because it kind of fills in the blanks with what people had questions about in the first trilogy.
Yeah, but here I think it's really good just because it shows, how Peter ended up at Aunt May's and Uncle Ben's and
what kind of toll that took on him as a kid.
Yeah. But then we jump forward to where we get our introduction to Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker. Honestly, because I watched this recently too, just because I felt like it. Honestly, I think he did a good job as Peter.
I think he did an excellent job, and I'll tell you why. I think that there's a lot of misconception on who or how Peter Parker should be played, and a lot of people think that he needs to be a total geek. I mean, honestly, that's not entirely true. Andrew was nerdy. He could have done without the skateboard.
That's
the skateboard is probably my one thing.
That's the one thing that holds him back from being perfect for me. Is the fact that first scene we see him skateboarding through the halls and
that's just
that never felt like Peter.
Yeah, it doesn't fit. But everything else, like his character, he is smart. He is kind of how a little bit of a dork,
Yeah.
So that's not bad. I cannot complain at all.
We get introduced to Gwen Stacy, the exact opposite of Mary Jane from the last movies, which we will get into a little bit more as we go along. But we get introduced to her. We get introduced to Flash Thompson. I like this Flash Thompson.
I do too.
He's not the most accurate, but it's like he just feels like I don't know. It's like he picks on Peter, but he always looks out for him. So we get that whole thing. Peter's going around some of the stuff in his house. He finds his father's bag, and that's where he gets the glasses and learns about, starts doing a little more research on Oscorp.
Mm-hmm.
So he sneaks in there, realizes Gwen's there, and he just goes, "Oh crap."
That was a cute scene.
That was.
I think all their love scenes are pretty cute.
Their chemistry,
it's
top notch,
solid. And it's not like one of those things where you just can't watch. It's almost like
you want
to watch. It's cringy, but you still want to see it happen.
Yeah.
So, like after the backboard scene, I was just cringing, but I still wanted to see how it went down.
I love that scene.
I do too.
So he's sneaking through Oscorp. Gwen eventually spots him, and then he's just kind of like, "All right, don't get me in trouble." He follows a couple scientists around, goes into this room of enhanced spiders, and thinks he gets all of them off. He doesn't. He gets bit by the spider. It's something these first two movies do really well for both franchises, is that they do a really good job of showing him discovering his powers. He's just in the subway sleeping, and then all of a sudden he's just doing all this stuff, beating up all the people on the subway.
Yeah.
Has this insane hunger when he gets back to his house.
Yeah.
I love the scene what Uncle Ben says, "No one likes meatloaf."
That's so good.
Why didn't you tell me to like the meatloaf?
I've been making you meatloaf for 37 years.
You see Uncle Ben going, "What?" So you get scenes all throughout where he's discovering his powers. I love the scene where he's typing on the keyboard, and then he's looking up stuff on Dr. Connors, and then a bunch of gibberish comes up, and then he's and they're stuck to his fingers. Oh, I thought that was hilarious. So he eventually then goes to visit Dr. Connors, who he didn't say he was Peter Parker when he met him for the first time. And then when he comes into the door, he's like, "Oh, I'm Richard Parker's son." And then Connors is like, "You've caught my attention." So they talk about this formula that Connor needs to try and regrow his arm.
He's acting like a nerd. He's acting awkward, as you would expect Peter Parker to do whenever he's meeting a famous scientist, right? So that's kind of whoever's complaining about it needs to stop complaining about it, because that's solid. That's solid acting. Yeah. Not only is it solid acting, but it's it's what I think when I think Peter Parker. Yes, Andrew Garfield is beautiful. that's okay. Like, he doesn't have, like, Peter Parker does not have to be ugly. And I think that's what a lot of people were like, he's not Tobey Maguire.
So we get the backboard scene, which is hilarious. It's still a hilarious scene because you see him school him. And the scene afterwards when Uncle Ben has to come in and say, you have to pick Aunt May up at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And he spots Gwen, and she's like, it's the girl on the computer. Shush! I thought that scene was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And then we get the scene after where he's, once again, skateboarding around and starts getting hints towards him starting to swing, where he uses the chains.
That's that training scene I was talking about. I love that.
That was such a good
It's
scene.
so necessary because it's like building up the excitement for whenever he finally takes full form. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and this is something I really bring up, but it's like the song they use for this, I don't know why, something about it just brings it together for me. It's just like a little bit calming, but it's like you get like that feeling of like he's learning something. But then he goes to Oscorp. He helps Connors figure out the missing part that he was needing. Uncle Ben tries calling him, Peter, and he declines. So when he gets back and sees Uncle Ben sitting out, saying that he forgot Aunt May, Uncle Ben's understandably are kind of upset about this.
Oh, he's ticked.
So they have this big fight. Aunt May's trying to calm it down, be like, oh no, it's fine. And then he and Uncle Ben having a fight. And this is where you get this version of with great power comes great responsibility. It's like, you have a moral obligation to do those things. That's what's at stake here. Not choice, responsibility.
Yeah.
That's this version of, because I sort of like how this and Tom have like different versions of bringing that phrase in. Peter storms out, and Uncle Ben goes looking for him. You get to see he's trying to buy milk. He's short a couple cents. The crook pretty much gives it to him when he steals from the guy in the grocery store.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the guy wouldn't let Peter like pay for it, even though he was short some money. Like
2 cents.
Yeah, that's right. It was 2 cents. And when the guy steals the money, he's running out. The store owner comes out and is like, "Okay, well,
help."
not my policy."
Yeah.
And then a little after, Uncle Ben gets shot. This scene was, these next couple minutes,
They're even more emotional to me.
yeah,
Because you got the
aftermath.
cheesy ass. I hate to say cheesy, but like
It fits.
in the first trilogy, like a lot of it was cheesy, but this one just felt more real to me.
Yeah, because with that,
Because Uncle Ben like visibly freaks out. You get to see how it goes down. You know what I'm saying? Like Uncle Ben is like freaking out. He's like scared because this guy just like robbed a store. Gun falls out.
Yeah, gun falls out, but the thing is, Uncle Ben still runs towards the guy to stop him.
Because he's freaking out. Like, and it's like you see it, and it's just like, no.
And the thing with Uncle Ben in the Raimi trilogy is that you really don't. You get a couple bits and pieces after he dies. Like he dies, he goes to get the killer.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did have to change this kind of origin up because they didn't want to do it straight away. 'Cause that's a bit of an issue I have. Is like just jumping ahead a little bit. He never catches the killer. Because he knows who it is automatically.
Yeah.
Which kind of takes away from like he learns with great power, great responsibility before even finding the guy.
But you know the reason why he doesn't do that, right? You know why he stops, right?
Yeah.
Because of Captain Stacy. Captain Stacy said something at that dinner, saying, you know, basically calling out Spider-Man, saying he's not some hero. He's just clearly somebody with a personal vendetta. And so from that point forward, he's trying, and because like the next fight scene is with the Lizard, and you know he has to like choose to be a hero.
Yeah, but going back just a second, but that's a great point. I'm glad you pointed that out. So we get the entire just aftermath. Like we see him like at home, like describing the guy, and then he's at school. And this is why I appreciate this version of Flash the most, because he goes over and asks Peter if he's alright. Like Peter slams him against the locker, but like it's almost like Flash wanted him to, because he wanted him to take some anger out.
Yeah, he said it feels better, right?
Yeah. I just love this version of Flash because he's so likable. It's like you see he cares for Peter. Like he picks on him, but it's like when Peter needs somebody, Flash will be one of the guys there. And I really appreciate that about him.
He's not just some big brute like in the first one.
Yeah.
You can tell like they took the actual characteristics of Flash from the comics and like really played out really well.
You see Gwen as well is trying to help him, and then you get to see he's going around. Well, no, he goes after one crook first, because all he has is like, it's a guy with blonde hair, sunglasses, and a star tattooed on his left hand. That's all he's got. So he's going around getting all of these guys. He had the first one, and ended up not being him. And then it was after that he was like, okay, I have to protect my identity. And then that's where we end up getting his Vigilante Suit. It's just him in an outfit with a red mask and sunglasses. Not a fan. Like, it's the first suit, yeah, I'm not a fan still.
I mean, I'm not a fan, but I don't think that was the point.
Yeah, the point was just, like, he wanted to protect his identity.
Yeah.
So, like, it's, like, I think it's fine, but compared to, I mean, Toby was a wrestling outfit, but even comparing it to Tom's later, but still, it's fine, but it's...
Tom's is so funny.
Yeah, I love it, though. So, we get that, he keeps going around, and here's a scene I love about this. When he's made, because one, we're back to organic web, well, not organic, we're mechanical web shooters. This is the first time in those movies. I love seeing him make these. Like, the scene where he's making this, he's like...
He's in his element.
I love it.
I love it.
I love it, because they do this in both movies. Where he's either making his web shooters, or he's pretty much experimenting with them. I love that, because you really see how smart this guy is. Like, you sort of see that with Toby, but not as much, because they took that part away with giving him organic web shooters. I just like that we're getting to mechanical web shooters, because I feel like they work a lot better. So we get that
because you can see the kind of control you have with it.
Yeah, and we get this. He's falling off a building. I love how he starts off like that. Like he does.
Oh, that was so rad.
It was
way better than Go Web Go, in my opinion. I mean, Go Web Go is.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
This
it's iconic.
epic.
But this is just like you're watching this and you're just like, let's go. I mean, I just got so excited watching it last night. It's like
that was a great scene. Then we get the scene. He keeps going after some crooks. He swings him a helicopter, which is cool. Then we get introduced to Captain Stacy, and it was after this where he's trying to look for some different costume ideas, and he's following some like really nerdy people at school, and they're talking about it, and then he's getting ideas from them. Then we see him start making his first suit. And then we get the cool, like, first-person shot of him running throughout. And then we first see the suit through a reflection in the side of a mirror. And then we get the epic shot of him on top of the building. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this first suit?
I think the color scheme is magnificent.
Oh, yeah.
The colors are beautiful. And I mean, like, even the embroidery, everything is perfect. Except the eyes. I don't like them.
Yeah.
I don't like them at all. I'll be
They're
straight
made
with you.
from sunglasses.
They're literally made from sunglasses. Like, I get that it's an origin story, like, movie. But I guess there's always going to be one thing I don't like.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just the glasses. I don't understand the eyes.
Like, the eyes, like, I don't mind them, but they are definitely my least favorite part about the suit, because just... I like the suit, but I love how they showed him making this. Because Toby, he just kind of gets it.
Like,
we never see him. We could see him sketch it, then we cut into the sketch, and then he has the suit. Yeah. We never see him make really any of his suits.
Yeah.
Which is what I love about this movie. And they do explain how he gets the next suit in one of the comics. We will talk about that suit next time. We'll talk about it next time. So, we get that. And then we get one of the funniest scenes I have ever seen in any Marvel movie ever. The car thief. When I say he nails Spider-Man perfectly, he freaking nails it. The fact that he's just sitting in the car, he's like, you know, if you want to steal cars, don't dress like a car thief, man. What, you're a cop? Really? You should just think I'm a cop. Cop in a skin tight red and blue suit, webs him in the face, and the crook is like, the heck? He dives out the window, then he looks and nobody's there, then he's just looking around there and you just hear, crotch! Jumps at him, and then flings him over, and the crook whips out the smallest knife ever. And Peter's,
oh no, you found my weakness. It's small knives.
Oh, it's so easy.
It's solid. I mean, you just gotta experience it.
This guy, Andrew was perfect as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then the cops come in, then he...
Uh-oh, boys in blues are here.
Oh, get the concept of the mask. I just did 80% of your job. Huh?
That's how you pay me? Oh, man.
Oh, I love this guy.
Geeking out right now.
Oh, yeah. So he...
Should have seen me last night, man. I was geeking out.
So he runs from the cops, and then we later on... Well, actually, no, he gets home, because Aunt May called him when we first see the suit, like, can you get some eggs?
Yeah.
He forgets. A little bit later, you see Well, actually, no. First, you see one of Connor's superiors is threatening to shut him down if they don't go to human trials with the new formula, because they regrew a limb on a mouse.
Yeah.
And when the superior is like threatening to shut him down, then he takes the formula himself. We cut to, because Gwen invited Peter over for dinner, drops in out her window, because really, like, it's cool, but really. So they have dinner. We see Connors has an arm. He's trying to catch a superior.
Yeah.
And because we kind of already talked about that dinner scene.
And he morphs into the lizard.
But
the serum went haywire, if you're wondering.
It really, really did.
As you know, it's kind of parallel to
what happened
Goblin.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, the origin story of Lizard and Goblin is pretty much the same, isn't it?
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, it really is.
But another thing,
it worked both times.
The reason why Connors was getting rushed is because Norman Osborn was dying. That's also important.
They go a lot more in depth with that in the second one, but it's a throwaway line. It's one line and like you'll miss it if you don't pay attention.
Yeah.
But it is there. So yeah, we get that scene. Earlier we get Peter and Gwen on the rooftop after he and Captain Stacy have a bit of an argument, and even as leaving, Peter is like, "I wasn't meaning to offend you. It wasn't my intention."
Yeah.
And they're just sort of cool with it after that, and then that's when he shows the Gwen that he's Spider-Man by shooting a web, doing that twirl, and then they have their first kiss. Yeah, really smooth. So then we get that fight scene on the, well, not really a fight scene, but like we get the scene on the bridge. Because Lizard is chucking off cars, and Spider-Man's going through catching all of them. And stupid bugs. Then we see, like, he's about to throw off the car with his superior, and Peter's swinging, and he just goes, "Incoming!" Kicks him away, and Lizard is going away. Like, we've seen Lizard by this point, so this dude's freaking scary.
Yeah.
He's scary, but I love it.
I do too.
I don't know, he's not really... Something about his face doesn't really scream the Lizard to me, because it feels like it should be more of... Like not really more of a reptilian face, but he should have, like, more of, like, some sort of, like, snout, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
But I still think he looks really cool. Like, when I watched this in theaters, he freaking scared the crap out of me. Especially with some jump scares later on. Good gracious. So we get that, and then the father is calling, saying his kid is trapped in one of the cars. So Peter goes out to help him, but because the kid's so scared of him with the mask, he takes his mask off, and it's just like, no, we're done.
Well, hold on. Let's talk about that for a second. He has to make a choice. He has to make a choice between either stopping the Lizard or actually being the hero, right? So he's got to make the choice of, do I help save this kid? Do I stop the bad guy? He helps save the kid, as he should. Because you'll see, whenever he makes these little decisions like that, it benefits him in the end, because he's like, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man at the end of the day. Like, yes, he's the amazing Spider-Man who's gonna, like, beat the bad guy, but he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's just, like, it was a really awesome scene.
Oh, yeah.
Because of how it all ties in later with that dad helping him out.
Oh!
Wonderful scene. Let's get there, though. How about it?
So, he helps the kid. The car's goes on fire, and he tells the kid put on his mask to give him the courage to climb back up. He does. He almost falls. Peter catches him with a web line, takes him up, and I sort of love... This is so much more of a heroic way of how he gets his name as compared to the first one, I'll say.
Yeah. Like
the first Tobey movie. Because he helps the kid up, and the father's like, who are you? And he just goes... He pretty much makes it up himself. He just goes, Spider-Man. And I don't know if it was... that was shown earlier. But that's where we get the first official, like, he's titled himself as Spider-Man. Yeah. And you get that scene of him sitting in his room with a mask on the floor, pretty much telling himself, this is what I have to do now.
Yeah. And I
love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Then we go a bit later where, he and Gwen have some scenes all the throughout. We get a scene later where he goes to Connor's lab to try and talk to him. Nobody's there. And he just goes, yeah, I gave everybody the week off. And then after Connors leaves, that mouse that had the serum injected to him before Connors did, Peter, looks over a counter, into a separate room, and sees it as mutated into a monster. And he tries going to Captain Stacy to tell him that the lizard creature is Dr. Connors.
Oh, Curtis Connors.
And he doesn't, like, he says he doesn't believe him, but he still looks it up anyways.
Yeah.
This is something I love about this movie, which is straight from the comics. The police don't trust Spider-Man at first. You sort of get that in the first one, but it's like 3 minutes at most. But then you really don't get a lot of that. Here, it's a big point in this movie.
Yeah. There's no J. Jonah Jameson, though.
Nope, not until the second one, and even then, he's not that much there either. So then Peter goes down into the sewers.
They do have the Daily Bugle, though.
They do. Yeah, they
because that's actually what tips him off. He'll see a newspaper on the ground that says proof for reward. Reward for proof.
Of the lizard.
Of the lizard, and that's from the Daily Bugle.
So he then goes into the sewers. Connors has set up his own lab down there. He shoots web lines down several different tunnels, multiple different webs, and he's just sitting there playing a game. And the thing is, the webs are so thin that like they'll detect vibrations. So when he feels a vibration on a line, he knows that there's something down there.
Keep in mind, he's got a camera set up in the sewers because he wants that money.
Yeah.
He still wants that bread.
Yeah. So he gets all of the lines just start tingling at once, and then he sees it just a bunch of little lizards, but they all start going down one pathway. So he starts going there, and then all of a sudden, lizard jumps down on top of him. I love this part of the movie because he scratches across his chest. You never see him repair his suit. The more damage his suit takes, the more it keeps it. I don't know why. I love that about this. Because, like, the next time we see him in the suit after this, it's still got those tears in the chest.
It's hard. It's cool.
So then Peter manages to get away, but he ends up leaving his camera behind, and that's where Lizard figures out that Spider-Man is Peter.
Yeah.
So he goes to Gwen, has her patch him up, and...
Cute little love scene.
Yep. Then we get the scene later on where Lizard goes to the high school to attack Peter, which is a great scene, by the way.
Dude, solid fighting in that scene.
Oh, yeah.
And Stan Lee's cameo.
We never talked about that in the other ones.
Ah!
We never talked about that. Okay.
Well, this one was arguably the best cameo. It's so wholesome and like he's just listening to music and they're just fighting in the
We'll
background.
sum up the first two cameos really quickly. He just moves somebody out of the way. Like the first one's kind of like blinking and then somebody's there. In my opinion, Spider-Man 3 has one of the best Stan Lee cameos
because he said enough said.
Yeah, he does. I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
Yeah.
We ranted about that movie, but that's something we'll put in the good, because that's one of his best cameos. Scene where he's just in the... I love the scene, because Gwen and Peter are sort of like working together, because Lizard's kind of throwing him around, but Gwen distracts him long enough. And I love how Peter's like, I'm going to throw you out the window now. What? And he's like, somebody's been a bad lizard. And then Stanley's listening to music. You see all them fighting in the background. Then Lizard gets away. Peter follows them into the sewers.
I'm going to cut you off right here. I really kind of wish that they would have picked up the Oscorp coat that's hanging in the bathroom so that way they could like see that Peter's like not blowing smoke and everything.
Yeah, I wish they would have done that. So, when Peter gets into the sewers and figures out what Lizard's plan is, he wants to use a device at Oscorp to spread this lizard serum.
The Ganali.
Oh yeah, the Ganali device.
Yeah.
But he wants to spread this serum to be in all of New York, or at the very least most of it. He tells Gwen to go to Oscorp and pretty much to make an antidote.
Yeah.
For not just Connors, but for
that
anybody else.
That was before he figured out the plan.
Yeah. So after he does figure out the plan, it's like you see the cops are rolling out. You get to see where Lizard's just standing in this random area. Then the cops start shooting at him, and he acts like he's like overwhelmed by this. And then, because he has insane regeneration too, because you see his tail pretty much get cut off, and
it grows back so fast.
Yeah,
I mean he is I'm not gonna say overpowered, but he is powerful, man.
He really is. Because when you see the cops go towards him, you see his bullet wounds heal immediately.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up and then sprays him all with lizard gas.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're in the final part of the movie, because Gwen's at Oscorp, making the antidote.
Yeah.
Peter comes out, and the cops are heading there, and I love this scene where he's calling her, and it's like...
You mother Hubbard.
He calls her and telling her to get out of there, and then she's like, no, I'm going to get everybody else out. A competent love interest. Take notes. MJ. But, or rather Mary Jane, because MJ in the Tom movies, she's pretty competent.
Yeah.
But I love Gwen, you mother! Are you serious? She gets everybody out of Oscorp, and Peter starts going there. And I love this. When he's swinging, he's like skirting himself along the sides of the buildings to show he has not mastered swinging yet.
Yeah.
I love that about this. We touched on this in the first Toby movie. Love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
So we get that he ends up getting tased by the cops, and they almost take him in. Like they cuff him, and the captain takes off his mask, and then that's when he gets up and he's moving so quickly, taking everybody out. And when the captain tells him to freeze, he turns around and Parker and lets him go. But because one of the cops is unconscious, he wakes up and immediately shoots Peter in the leg. That really hinders him because he's trying to get to Oscorp as fast as he can, but he's still all the way across the city. And Lizard by this point has gone into Oscorp, and this was the scene that terrified me in the theater. He's walking through this ominous music. Gwen's just hiding, and then he just comes around the corner. Scared the crap out of me in the theater.
Oh yeah, that was solid.
But he takes the device, he doesn't harm Gwen, and he's like, antidote.
I wonder why.
Probably because Connors recognized it was Gwen. Peter's trying to get there, but that bullet wound is hindering him bad.
Yeah.
So, the people have it on the TV where it's just like, Spider-Man's trying to get there, but it's not where they're going to make it. This is where the scene from the bridge comes in, because the father is like, get all the other people on the line. And
as of right now, there's a citywide evacuation, though.
Yeah. But even then, everybody knows there's not going to be enough time to get everybody out, because Aunt May's watching this all happen on the TV, because she's, in Queens, so like she's out of range of it from happening to her, but still like she's worried because she knows Peter is in there somewhere, so she's worried. And then we are at the crane scene, because people all throughout New York are lining the cranes up. Spider-Man gets over onto the roof and he sees them lining it up. He revs up his wound and goes swinging there. The best scene in this entire movie.
Yeah, for sure.
It's one of my, because it's like from the first Tobey movie. They're helping Spider-Man out, and I love that about this. So he gets to Oscorp in time. He starts trying to stop a lizard, but he disables his web shooters. And Gwen gets out with the antidote, tells the dad to get it to Spider-Man. The scene where Lizard says, no father.
No uncle. No mother.
It says he's
all alone.
And then Captain Stacy comes in and says, no, he's not.
He's not alone. Bow.
And then hands him the, because one thing they found that, like, sort of temporarily slows him down is they can freeze him, which stops the limb growth from
the liquid nitrogen.
Yeah. Which is what Peter was going for.
Solid plan.
Yeah, he was going for it at first, and then the lizard stopped him.
Yeah.
So he does that, and the captain gives the antidote to him, and is like, I got this, go. He starts going, well, the liquid nitrogen starts running out. And
he doesn't have webs to help him finish up what he needs to do.
Yeah. So the lizard ends up stabbing him, pretty much. Like, just running
his claws through his whole body.
Pretty much. And then starts going for Peter, because the lizard has put a lizard formula in like an alloy device to shoot it into the sky to spread it all over New York. Peter just barely makes it to put the antidote in there. So it goes all throughout, cures all the people that were lizards, including Connors. And his web shooters are falling apart, so when that tower starts falling apart, he starts going down too, and Lizard catches him. Then you get that emotional scene with Captain Stacy's death. And says something that plays a major part in the second movie. Leave Gwen out of this.
Which there's also many ways to interpret what he said. I feel like that's important to mention.
Yeah.
Because the way Peter interprets it, it kind of takes me off.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm glad we caught that.
I know, right? Because that's like one thing. I don't know. I feel like it could have been handled a little differently. I mean, the scene is perfect. The scene is exactly, as it should be. But
you see how frustrated Peter is, because after he dies, like, the music is loud, but you can hear him do, like, that music, because it's kind of muffled, but you hear him just yell with anger.
Isn't that such a good scene? Like, I love the way that was made.
It was so good. So, we get a little bit later. Peter gets home. Aunt May sees he has bruises all over his face. And he pulls the eggs out.
Good scene.
And then we get the scene of Captain Stacy's funeral. Gwen's there. Peter's on a rooftop. Gwen goes to his house, and Peter says, we can't be together. And then as Gwen's walking away, it's like...
Made you promise, didn't he?
Yep. And you get the scene where Aunt May's talking to him, and it's just like, Peter Parker, if I know one thing in this world, is that you are a good person.
Yeah.
What we didn't touch on was that Peter started listening to a voice message left by Uncle Ben after Peter stormed out the first time. He started listening to it, but never finished it.
And then he finished it after the lizard fight.
Yeah. And he sees some crooks run away. He starts going after them, and then he looks to see what they put, and they just put a sort of spray paint of Spider-Man's logo on. He's just like, you know what, I'll let them go. They weren't doing anything bad. So then you get the scene at school. Him and Gwen are Gwen's kind of ignoring him. And
they're both ignoring each other, honestly.
Well, Gwen's sort of ignoring Peter a little more. Because then Peter comes into class a bit late, because I guess he was just standing around that hallway. And, actually, no. I think he stayed behind on purpose, because he came in late.
Yeah, they definitely had to have been on purpose.
Because he comes in late with the class he has with Gwen, and is like, I promise it won't happen again. Don't make promises you can't keep. And then whispers to Gwen, yeah, but those are the best kind. Then Gwen smiles, and then you get, once again, arguably the most epic final swing in any Spider-Man movie. This scene was beautifully shot, and the final shot of this movie,
it's like slow motion. Oh, it's awesome. Dude.
You can't get much better than this. It's so good. So then we get a post-credit scene, which they sort of, again, they're trying to set some stuff up where Connors is in jail, and there's this guy who's in there with him, just talking about Peter and his father, and that's it.
9 out of 10. I'm gonna say it. Come at me. All right, it's a 9. It's a 9. I think it's a 9, man.
You know what? I'm gonna give it a 9.5.
Woo!
Come at me. I love that. The main reason I give it that high of a score is because, yeah, like, just on rewatch, like, there's really no, like, aside from maybe the Peter Parker skateboard thing,
yeah,
you take that part out, I would say this is a contender for the perfect Spider-Man movie.
It's almost.
Fight me. Do it.
No, it's almost. It's almost perfect.
And
there's just little things.
The reason I say that is because I delved into this a little bit in the last video. This was the movie that got me hooked on Spider-Man as a character. Like, I watched the Raimi movies when I was younger, but then I watched The Amazing Spider-Man in theaters, and it was that movie that made me go, alright, I want to know more about this character. I read so many big comics. I watched the Raimi movies again and appreciated them more, and I counted the days till The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out.
Oh, dude, I remember seeing that poster up in the theaters, and that said May 2014. I was like, no way, I gotta see that.
It's like, this movie just has such a special place in my heart, where it might be up there as, between this and maybe one of the movie, might be up there as a contender for my favorite live-action Spider-Man movie. Between this and maybe another movie we haven't gotten to yet. But so much of this movie just worked for me. Like, aside, again, the Peter skateboarding part was really the only issue I had with it. Everything else, loved. Fight me. I'm not kidding. I love these. I love this movie.
He just got bit by a radioactive spider. Fight him, I dare you.
So join us for next week, where we review probably the most, I don't want to say most divisive, but probably the most hated Spider-Man movie, because we get The Amazing Spider-Man 2. We're not going to do this like Spider-Man 3. We're going to do it like we've always been, because I like this movie too. Want to fight me? You can do it next week. But in the comments, not in real life. But yeah, so next week we're going to be doing The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And there are a lot of things I'm excited to talk about with it, but...
I'm glad he got a haircut.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't like the haircut in this one.
Yeah, something about it threw me off.
It was just a little too shaggy.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, no, I get that. Something about it kind of threw me off here, but... So stay tuned next week for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Let me know, because I might end up doing this later on this week. Let me know if you guys want to see a review of Eternals. I watched that Saturday.
I did too. I'll talk with you about it.
Let us know if you want to see a review for Eternals. We might just do it anyways. But, anyways, that'll do it. See y'all next week for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and maybe Eternals. See y'all later.